My friends, let us take a moment to reflect on the truth that surrounds us every day. In this fast-paced world, we are often met with challenges, frustrations, and the actions of others that threaten our peace of mind. It's a common experience we all feel at times that we are at the mercy of the circumstances around us. People can hurt us, their words can sting, and their actions can anger us. But today I want to share with you something that holds the power to transform your life. At the core of many of our frustrations and difficulties in life lies an uncomfortable truth. Anger is a choice. It's not something that just happens to us. Rather, it's a response we decide to have when confronted with a challenging situation or a difficult person. Now, before we delve deeper, let me say that it's not always easy. Emotions can come rushing in like a storm, and they may feel as though anger is the natural, instinctive reaction. But here's where the power of choice comes in. We often think of emotions as something we have no control over. We believe that when someone says something hurtful, or when life throws us a curveball, we have to get angry. It seems like the only option available in the moment. But let us consider something for a moment. The person who can get angry at the same situation you're facing may not have the same experience as you. They may be reacting differently because they have chosen a different response. The anger doesn't exist in the situation itself. It exists in the space between the event and our reaction to it. What we need to realize is that the energy we pour into our anger is within our control. It is within our power to choose how we respond. When someone's actions upset you, you have the choice to either give in to that initial feeling of anger or take a step back and choose peace. This doesn't mean suppressing your feelings. It doesn't mean pretending that you aren't upset. But it does mean that you can acknowledge your emotions and make a conscious decision to respond in a way that preserves your peace. Anger often arises because we feel threatened, whether our pride is hurt, we feel disrespected, or we fear that we've been wronged. But it's essential to understand that anger does not solve anything. It's an emotion that consumes us, often leaving us feeling drained and even more upset. And not only that, but anger also clouds our judgment, making it difficult to see the situation for what it truly is. When we give in to anger, we lose the ability to think clearly and wisely. We become prisoners of our emotions, and in that state we often say or do things that we later regret. So in recognizing that anger is a choice, we also have the opportunity to choose another path. We can choose to respond with calmness, understanding, and self-restraint. This doesn't mean being passive or indifferent. It means that we have the strength to pause before reacting. It means we can take a deep breath, regain control over ourselves, and decide what response will truly serve us in the long run. The power of this choice comes in how it frees us. When we let go of anger, we let go of a burden. We stop letting the actions of others control our emotional state. Instead, we take back our power, and in doing so, become more resilient and at peace. In a sense, by choosing not to be angry, we take ownership of our emotional well-being. Let's think about the times we've experienced frustration or anger that lingered far longer than it should have. Those moments don't just pass quickly, do they? The longer we hold on to anger, the more it festers within us, and the more it takes away from our ability to find peace and joy in the present moment. The truth is that anger is doing far more harm to us than it could ever do to the person who may have upset us in the first place. By holding on to anger, we remain trapped in a cycle of negativity. But here's the good news. We don't have to remain trapped. We can choose to let go of that anger. And when we do, we free ourselves from its grip, allowing us to live a life that is not ruled by fleeting emotions, but by calm, clear-headed choices. What we're talking about here is not about pretending things don't bother us. It's not about denying the hurt or pretending that injustice doesn't exist. It's about understanding that we don't have to let that anger control us. We can choose how to react, whether we will meet the storm with more fuel or whether we will weather the storm with a quiet strength that comes from within. Let us remember this truth. Anger, though powerful, is only as powerful as we allow it to be. When we choose not to give in to it, we take back control. We choose peace, we choose grace, and we choose to live in a way that reflects strength, not weakness. And in that choice, we find the freedom to truly live in harmony with ourselves and those around us. In sum, anger is indeed a choice. It's a response to the events and people around us, but it is ultimately within our control whether we give in to it. When we realize this, we begin to take control over our lives, not by controlling others or changing the world around us, but by mastering our own reactions, our own inner world. In this world of ours, where we are often bombarded by demands, opinions, and conflicting viewpoints, it's easy to forget one of the most powerful and healing virtues we have at our disposal: compassion. To practice compassion is not just to show kindness in times of ease, but to offer understanding and a caring heart when it is most difficult. Compassion is not merely an act. It's a mindset, a way of approaching the world and its people with openness, patience, and a deep empathy for their struggles. The first thing we must understand is that compassion is rooted in understanding. It begins when we recognize that every person we meet is carrying something. They are living a story that we know nothing about. We cannot fully know the burdens that another person may be carrying, the deep pains they may be concealing, or the wounds they are silently nursing. So when someone acts in a way that irritates us, offends us, or even hurts us, instead of rushing to judgment or taking offense, let's pause and consider the possibility that their actions may be driven by something much deeper, something we cannot see. When we practice compassion, we choose to see beyond the surface. We choose to look into the heart of another person and recognize that they too are human. They too have their struggles, and sometimes those struggles manifest in ways that are difficult for us to understand. Perhaps they are hurting, maybe they are afraid, or maybe they are simply tired. The person who lashes out in anger may be doing so because of an unresolved pain in their life. The person who seems indifferent or cold may be hiding their vulnerability behind a wall built out of past hurts. Compassion is not about fixing others. It's not about making their problems go away or solving their struggles for them. No, compassion is about standing with them in their pain, offering them a listening ear, a gentle word, or simply a comforting presence. It's about offering grace in moments when others may not even be able to ask for it. Compassion sees the suffering of others not as something distant or separate from us, but as something we are connected to. It's about recognizing that their pain is not their burden alone to carry. When we respond to others with compassion, we remind them that they are not alone in their struggles. One of the most powerful aspects of compassion is that it transforms how we view conflict. It's so easy to get caught up in the cycle of blame, anger, and misunderstanding. Someone says something that offends us, and our first instinct is to retaliate, to defend our own position, or to hold a grudge. But when we approach conflict with compassion, we stop seeing the other person as an adversary or enemy. Instead, we see them as a fellow human being, perhaps struggling with their own issues, fears, or insecurities. We may not agree with their actions or words, but compassion invites us to approach them with gentleness, understanding, and the willingness to listen. It's also important to understand that compassion doesn't mean tolerating mistreatment or allowing ourselves to be taken advantage of. Compassion doesn't require us to turn a blind eye to injustice or to enable harmful behavior. Rather, compassion involves setting healthy boundaries while still offering kindness, forgiveness, and empathy. In fact, true compassion includes self-compassion, the ability to care for our own well-being while caring for others. You cannot truly give compassion to others if you do not first give it to yourself. If you do not show yourself kindness and understanding, you will find it hard to offer those same things to those around you. At its heart, compassion is a choice, a decision to approach life and its challenges with an open heart. It is a choice to let go of the impulse to judge, to criticize, or to hold on to resentment, and instead to offer a gentler, more thoughtful response. It's the choice to treat others with the same kindness, patience, and understanding that we would hope to receive when we are struggling. It's the realization that we all carry wounds, that we all need healing, and that we all can make mistakes. When we choose compassion, we choose to stand with one another, to recognize our shared humanity, and to walk together in this life with love and understanding. In the practical sense, compassion can manifest in many small but profound ways. It can be as simple as offering a word of encouragement to someone who is struggling, listening attentively when someone needs to talk, or providing a helping hand to those in need without expecting anything in return. Compassion may also look like forgiveness, a willingness to release someone from the debt of their wrongs and to let go of the anger that would otherwise bind us to the past. It's about taking the time to really see people for who they are and recognizing that just as we long for understanding and care, they long for it as well. Compassion is a gift we give to others, but it is also a gift we give to ourselves. The more we practice compassion, the more we deepen our own sense of peace and joy. When we respond to life with compassion, we are less likely to be swept away by anger, frustration, or bitterness. Instead, we create an inner well of peace, understanding, and love that becomes a source of strength not only for ourselves, but for those around us. Compassion nurtures the soul, and in nurturing others with compassion, we experience a deeper connection to life itself. In this world, we are all vulnerable to being hurt, misunderstood, or mistreated by others. Whether it is a loved one who betrays our trust, a colleague who undermines us, or a stranger who shows us cruelty, it's an unfortunate but inevitable part of life. In these moments, the emotions that rise within us can feel overwhelming. Pain, anger, sadness, frustration. These feelings often compel us to seek justice, to hold on to grudges, and sometimes to seek revenge, thinking that doing so will bring us the relief we crave. But what if, in holding on to those feelings, we are only prolonging our own suffering? What if the true path to peace lies not in clinging to the past, but in choosing to forgive? Forgiveness is often misunderstood. It is not about excusing the actions of others or pretending that wrongs have not been done. It's not about pretending that the hurt doesn't matter. Forgiveness is a profound act of releasing the grip that past wounds have over us. It is the conscious decision to let go of the anger, resentment, or bitterness that often takes root when we feel wronged. And in doing so, we free ourselves, not the person who hurt us. Think about this for a moment. When we hold on to anger and resentment, we are essentially carrying a weight. It may be heavy, but we carry it, thinking that by doing so, we are punishing the person who has wronged us. But the truth is that weight is only burdening us. The other person may have long since moved on, while we remain shackled to the past. The resentment we feel toward them does not affect them nearly as much as it affects us. It eats away at our peace, clouding our judgment and draining our emotional energy. Forgiveness is not for the other person. It's for us. It is a gift we give to ourselves. When we forgive, we choose to release the control that the offense has over our hearts and minds. We decide that we will no longer allow the wrongs of others to dictate our emotional state. We will no longer let their actions hold us hostage. Forgiveness in its truest form is an act of self-liberation. To forgive is to acknowledge that we cannot change the past, no matter how much we dwell on it, no matter how many sleepless nights we spend replaying the hurt. We cannot undo the words that were said or the actions that were taken, but we can decide how we move forward. We can choose to rise above the situation, to free ourselves from its hold, and to step into a future where we are no longer controlled by bitterness and resentment. When we forgive, we are not saying that the wrong was acceptable or that the person's behavior was justified. What we are saying is that we refuse to let that wrong define our future. We are choosing peace over pain, freedom over captivity. Forgiveness also brings us closer to healing. The act of forgiveness creates space within us for the healing to begin. When we choose to hold on to anger or resentment, we may think we are protecting ourselves from further harm, but in reality, we are holding on to an emotional wound that prevents it from healing. Just like an open cut or bruise, if we continue to pick at it or refuse to treat it, it will never heal. In fact, it will fester and grow more painful. Similarly, when we hold on to anger and refuse to forgive, we prevent ourselves from healing emotionally. We keep our wounds open and they continue to hurt even as time passes. Forgiveness allows the wound to close. It gives us the opportunity to heal and to move on from the hurt. Forgiveness is an act of strength, not weakness. Many people believe that forgiving someone means we are somehow weak or that we are letting the other person off the hook. But nothing could be further from the truth. Forgiveness requires a profound strength. It takes courage to let go of the hurt, to release the anger, and to walk away from the desire for vengeance. It requires the strength to choose love, compassion, and peace in the face of the pain. It takes a strong person to forgive because it's a choice that comes from a place of inner strength. It's a choice that says, I will not let this hold me back. I will not let this define me. I will not let this control my happiness. And that, my friends, is true power. Forgiveness opens the door to peace. In the absence of forgiveness, we may find ourselves trapped in a cycle of anger, bitterness, and resentment. We may carry these emotions with us into every part of our lives, affecting our relationships, our work, and our own sense of self-worth. We may even find ourselves anticipating the next offense, constantly on guard, afraid of being hurt again. But when we forgive, we release that cycle. We let go of the fear, the anxiety, and the stress that come with holding on to anger. In that moment of release, peace floods in. The peace we are seeking was always within our reach, but it was obscured by the weight of unforgiveness. Forgiveness allows us to walk in peace, to breathe freely again, to live without the burden of the past clouding our present. Forgiveness is also an act of love. It is an expression of compassion, not just for the person who has wronged us, but for ourselves as well. By forgiving, we are choosing love over hate, understanding over judgment, and grace over condemnation. Forgiveness requires us to look beyond the person's actions and see them for who they are, a fellow human being, imperfect like ourselves. We may not condone what they have done, but we recognize that we too have our flaws and we need grace just as much as they do. Let us also recognize that forgiving does not mean forgetting. The saying, forgive and forget, often carries the implication that we are supposed to erase the hurt from our memories. But the truth is, forgiveness is about choosing not to let the hurt define us. It is about choosing not to let the memory of the wrong control our future. Forgiveness allows us to remember the lesson without allowing the pain to linger. We are free to move forward without being tethered to the past. In a world filled with so much uncertainty, hardship, and adversity, it's easy to become fixated on what we lack, what we're missing, or what isn't going right in our lives. We tend to focus on the challenges, the disappointments, the things that frustrate us, and in doing so, we forget to acknowledge the many blessings that surround us each and every day. We forget to express gratitude. But the truth is, gratitude has the power to transform our lives. It is one of the most powerful tools we can use to shift our mindset, increase our happiness, and lead us toward a life of peace and fulfillment. Gratitude is not just a fleeting feeling. It is a mindset, a way of viewing the world through a lens of appreciation rather than entitlement. It's easy to take the good things in our lives for granted. When everything is going well, it can feel like it's simply how life is supposed to be. But gratitude invites us to pause, to reflect, and to recognize the many blessings, big and small, that we may have overlooked. It encourages us to be present in the moment, to notice the simple things that make life beautiful, and to acknowledge the abundance that already exists around us. Gratitude doesn't just come in moments of ease and joy. It is especially transformative when we practice it during times of struggle. We all face difficulties, times when life seems unfair, when we encounter loss or disappointment, or when we feel overwhelmed by the weight of the world. In these moments, it can be easy to feel that everything is going wrong, and we may find ourselves focusing only on what is lacking or painful. But in these moments, cultivating gratitude is perhaps the most important thing we can do. Gratitude allows us to shift our perspective. Instead of being consumed by the negative, gratitude teaches us to search for the good, even in the midst of hardship. It helps us to reframe our struggles, to see them not as obstacles that define us, but as opportunities for growth. When we practice gratitude, we start to notice the silver linings that were previously hidden beneath the weight of our troubles. We may not always be able to change the situation, but we can choose to focus on what we still have, what we can learn, and the support we have around us. For example, if we're going through a difficult season of life, gratitude may not immediately take away the pain or solve the problem, but it can help us to acknowledge the small moments of beauty and love that still exist in our lives. A comforting word from a friend, a warm meal, a moment of quiet peace. These are all things that deserve our recognition. When we start to see these things through the lens of gratitude, we begin to feel lighter, more at ease, and more connected to the goodness that still exists around us. Gratitude is not just about what we receive, it's about what we give. When we cultivate gratitude, we naturally begin to appreciate the people in our lives. We recognize the value of those who support us, love us, and enrich our lives. In turn, gratitude moves us to express our appreciation to others. We find ourselves more willing to offer kind words, acts of service, and support in return. Gratitude becomes a cycle, one that starts with us but spreads outward to those around us. By expressing gratitude, we not only uplift ourselves but also uplift others, creating a ripple effect of positivity and love. One of the most powerful ways to cultivate gratitude is through daily practice. Gratitude is something that we can intentionally foster in our lives, and the more we do so, the more natural it becomes. One simple way to start is by keeping a gratitude journal. Each day, take a few moments to reflect on the things you are thankful for. These can be big things like your health, your family, or your home. Or they can be small things like a beautiful sunset, a cup of coffee, or a good book. The key is to make it a habit to actively seek out and recognize the blessings in your life each day. At first it might feel difficult, especially if you're going through a tough time, but the beauty of gratitude is that the more you practice it, the more it changes your brain and your heart. Studies have shown that people who practice gratitude regularly experience higher levels of happiness, improved mental health, and stronger relationships. Gratitude shifts our focus from what is lacking to what is abundant, and in doing so, it invites more joy and peace into our lives. Gratitude also teaches us contentment. In a world that constantly encourages us to want more, to chase after the next goal or achievement, gratitude grounds us in the present moment. It reminds us that we don't need to have everything figured out or have the perfect circumstances to feel fulfilled. Gratitude helps us find peace with what is, rather than what we wish it were. It allows us to embrace the here and now and to find joy in the simple, everyday moments. When we cultivate contentment, we stop comparing ourselves to others or chasing after the next thing, and we start to truly appreciate the richness of our own lives.